So a person says to his friend, give me 100 zuz that I lent to you. Amar le lo praticha b'fnei ploni uploni. So again, I said, Reuven, give me the $100 that I lent to you. Reuven says to me, didn't I pay you back in front of Ploni and Ploni? Asu Ploni uploni. So the two witnesses come along and they say, Amri, lo, hayu dvarim me'olam. We have no idea what you're talking about. So it says the Gemara, Samar Rav Sheshis l'meimar, hochsa kafran. Rav Sheshis says, so what do you see from here? Reuven's a liar. Right? Reuven is now established as a liar. After all, again, Reuven claimed that he paid back the debt in front of these two people. These two people are denying any kind of knowledge regarding this debt, so therefore Reuven is a liar. To which the Gemara says, Amar le Rava. Rava said, no. There's actually a fascinating principle which we learned before, which is that generally we say any piece of information that I am not required to remember, I don't remember. Which of us say, we know this in general in life, even the pieces of information that I am required to remember, I don't remember. Right? The pieces of information which I am not required, so to speak, to remember, I don't. Therefore, the Gemara is suggesting over here that in this case, because there was no stipulation to pay back in front of witnesses, therefore, again, Reuven is just simply remembering the information wrong. He thought he repaid the debt in front of witnesses A and B. It turns out that they said, nope, not us. That doesn't make him a liar. That just makes him bad with memory recall. It just makes him, again, a little bit hazy, a little bit fuzzy on some of the details. But because, again, there was no obligation to pay back in front of witnesses, therefore this is what we call a non-essential piece of information. Because it's a non-essential piece of information, he is not considered a liar if he gets it wrong. Which also is an incredible principle and yesod, which is that if it turns out that I am incorrect regarding non-essential information, that cannot render me into a kafran. That can't make me halachically into a liar. I go over to her and say, Reuven, give me the 600 zuz that I lent to you. So Reuven says, listen, I paid you back 100 kav afatzim nuts. I paid you back 100 kav of gall nuts that were worth 600 zuz. In other words, I paid you back the value of the debt with produce. I say, no, Reuven, you made a mistake. Yes, you did give me the gall nuts. You did give me the 100 kav of gall nuts, but that was only worth 400 zuz. Therefore, you owe me another 200 zuz. So we'll say, so what happened? So Rashi points out over here that in the interim he says, okay, I might have been mistaken about the value of the gall nuts, but I know I paid you the entire debt. So maybe just I paid you the rest in cash. Also, in Ba'arba Havokaimi. So we'll say witnesses show up and they say, yes, Reuven paid Silber 100 kav of gall nuts, but at the time of the repayment, it was worth 400 zuz. So the witnesses now contradict Reuven's account. Reuven originally said they were worth 600 zuz. Witnesses claim they're worth 400 zuz. Amar Rava says, Hochsa kafran. Rava says Reuven's a liar because essentially he's been established as a liar because, again, essentially his testimony has been refuted by the account of the witnesses. Amrai Barchama Amrit Komilsadol Rami Ale Inish Lava Daite. But one second, Rabbi Barchama says, but one second, Rava, you just said before that in general, any piece of information that is quote unquote non-essential, if a person doesn't recall it properly, it doesn't make him into a liar. Amrle Rava says, okay, but Ketsusa Detara Mitkar Dikiri Inshi. If there's one thing that people know, it's what? It's the value of their merchandise. So Rabbi said at the end of the day, Rava says, if I'm paying with merchandise, I know exactly how much that merchandise is worth at the time of the repayment. The fact that Reuven says it was worth 600, when the witnesses say that it was worth 400, that ultimately, again, is a sign that Reuven is dishonest, and therefore, again, huchsa kafran. Hahudam levechavre. Havli me'azuzi demastikne b'cha v'hashtara. So let's listen to this. I say to Reuven, give me the 100 zuz that you owe me, and here is the shtar. I have a document. Which proves that I lent you money, a document which proves you owe me money. Amar praticha. Reuven says, I paid you. So we'll say that obviously the difficulty over here is that I am still holding the shtar. So Reuven says, so obviously that gives me the right of collection. Reuven says, he goes ahead, Reuven says he paid me. So what happens? Amrle, so I admit that I received 100 zuz from Reuven, but what do I say? Amrle, Hano Sitraininu. That was payment for another debt. I will say Sitraininu, Rashi says, is mitzad achar hayisa chayivli. You owed me money from something else. So this is very interesting. So in this case over here, so just so you follow the flow, I'm claiming, Reuven, you owe me $100. Reuven says, and here's the shtar. Reuven says, I paid you. I say, yes, Reuven, you gave me $100, but that was for a different debt. So we'll say here, interestingly enough, I am admitting that I received money from Reuven, but I'm qualifying that admission by saying that it was for something other than the debt recorded in the shtar, and the fact that I still have the shtar allows me to collect the loan. So Amar Rav Nachman says, Isra Shtara. So I'll say, Rav Nachman says, the fact that I admit that I received money from Reuven compromises or weakens the shtar. Take a look at Rashi. Isra Shtara, Hoyel Umoda Shekiblein, Velav Kol Kamine Lomar Sitraininu. We'll say, once I admit that I went ahead and I received money from Reuven, I have effectively diminished the power of the shtar. Therefore, again, I'm going to say, so Isra Shtar, Rashi says, Hoyil Umoda Shekibling, since I admitted that I received the money, V'lav Kol Kamine Lomar Sitraininu. I'm not believed to say this was for something else. So, in other words, if I have a debt recorded in a document, and Reuven's saying you paid me 100, I'm saying I paid 100, and I'm admitting that I received 100, my admission erodes, or I should say, not erodes, but diminishes the strength of the document that I am holding. Rav Papa says no. Lo isra shtara. It is not true. The shtar is not compromised. Rav Papa, so according to Rav Papa, who says that the shtar is not compromised, so we'll say, so why is this different than the following case? Havli me'azuzi, dimasikna b'chava hashtara. I go over to her and say, Reuven, here, give me back the $100 that I lent you, and here is my shtar. Amar le lav ature yahavisli va'asis. So listen to this. We'll also read this one at a time. So Reuven says, you're right. You gave me $100. Remember, you gave me $100 to buy oxen. I bought oxen. Va'asis ve'esivas amas chasa. You came with me and you sat by the stall where they butcher the animals. V'kabilas zuzach. And as I sold off the meat, I paid you off the money. Va'amar le. And what happens? I say to Reuven, yes, I got $100 from you, but hano sitray ninu. That was for payment of a different debt. What does our Papa say? It's for shtara. It will say, once I admit that I received, what the Gemara is saying over here is, once I admit that I received money from Reuven, and that money is in the amount of what? The same amount as the loan spelled out in the document, I have eroded the power of the document. I've undermined the power of the document. And yet Rav Papa says that you say that over here. Hasam kevan damaraturi yahavislim and turi shakalt isra shtara. But say it's different because in the case we just quoted, where again there was an item-specific loan and an item-specific repayment. Reuven's claiming you gave me money to purchase oxen. I sold off the meat with you present to go, and I gave you back the money. That's why isra shtara. Halcha emor sitrain here. Rav say over here, it is possible to say that maybe there was another debt owed from Reuven to me. My Haviyala. So we'll say, what's the bottom line? Rav Papi Amar Lo Isra Shtara. Rav Papi says again on both sides, the shtar is not compromised. Rav Sheish said Rav Idi Amar Isra Shtara. Rav Sheish said Rav Idi says no, the shtar is compromised. V'hilchasa. And Rav say, what is the halacha? Isra Shtara. Then Rav say again in a case where I say, Reuven, I lent you $100, and here is the shtar. Here is the shtar. And Reuven says, but I paid you back $100. And Rav say, what do I do? What do I say? What do I say? Yes, you paid me back $100, but that was for a different debt. Both the Gemara says the halacha is the document is compromised, and unless I could prove otherwise, I cannot collect another $100 from Reuven. The fact that Reuven says he paid me back, I agreed that he paid me back, and the amount of the repayment is the same value as the loan spelled out in the shtar. I no longer have the ability to collect another $100. On both sides. Now remember, the one thing I, the lender, have going for me is what? I have the document. Understand, normative lending protocol is when the borrower pays back the lender the money, what happens? Lender gives the borrower the shtar. The fact that the shtar is still in my possession is the one thing that seems to work in my favor. But again, says the Gemara, if we're talking about an amount of money, the same amount that's spelled out in the shtar, I'm admitting that I received it, it's a shtar. I can no longer collect another $100 with that same shtar. And Abba say, when do we say isra shtara? So the pare ba'api sahadi, velo itkar le shtara. Abba say that's only when repayment of the amount, meaning when we'll call Reuven gave me the $100, that's when the repayment took place. So we'll say not in the presence of witnesses. Excuse me, in the presence of witnesses. Below itkar shtar, Rashi says, and ultimately again the shtar was not mentioned. In other words, the borrower didn't ask the lender for the shtar back. Aval pare ben didei ledidei. But I will say, if repayment just took place between me and Ruvain, then migo diachal lemimar lo hayu dvar me'olam yochal nami lemimar sitra ninu. I will say, listen to this. When do we say Isra Shtara? Isra Shtara is said when repayment took place in front of witnesses. Because I will say, what happens when repayment takes place in front of witnesses? What happens? I, the lender, can no longer deny that I received repayment. However, if Reuven paid me the $100, and he paid it just between me and him, no witnesses, and then I later on say, yes, he paid me $100, but that was for a secondary debt, I am believed. Why? I will say, why? Because I have a migo. What's the migo? I could have said what? Never happened. $100. You never paid me anything. Since I could have lied and I could have said you never paid me anything, therefore, again, migo diachalomar lemeimar lo hayu dvar me'olam yochal nami lemeimar sitra ninu ukidavimi breit Rabbi Avo. Because it will say, since the repayment took place, again, not in the presence of witnesses, but just between me and the borrower. I have a migo. I could have said, you never pay me back anything. The fact that I'm admitting that you pay me back something, therefore, migo says that since I could have made a claim that you paid me back nothing, instead, I chose to acknowledge that you paid me back money, I am believed to qualify the nature of that repayment. Fine. And I will say, that indeed is how the Rambam paskins. That Allah Chalamaisi, again, if repayment took place in front of witnesses, but I, the lender, still retain the shtar, isra shtara. Even though I claim, yes, you pay me, but the payment was for something else, I am not believed. And unless I could prove otherwise, I can't collect another $100, even though I still have possession of the shtar. However, if repayment took place just between the lender and borrower without witnesses, then the lender has a migo. He could have said, Lo hayu dvar me'olam, don't know what you're talking about. Therefore, once he admits repayment, he is believed ultimately to qualify the nature of that repayment as well. This is an interesting case. Listen to this, I will say. I lend Ruvain money. So what happens? Ruvain says to me, listen, Silber, I trust you that if we go to court, if we ever have a dispute or in any way, you should be believed to say that I didn't pay back the debt. In other words, that if it's my word against your word should trump. Right? Your word should trump. Meaning at the end of the day, if you say that I didn't pay back, you're believed. So again, so right, you are believed to, this is the borrower talking to the lender, you are believed to say, I did not pay back. Listen to this. So Ruvain, the borrower, comes and he pays me back in front of witnesses. So we'll say, the Gemara says, Abayi v'Rava, da'amri tarvayu, Abayi v'Rava da'amri tarvayu, ha'hemne. Supposed to listen to this. So now what happens? He comes and he pays me back in front of witnesses. They will say, parentheses, what happens? I claim I didn't receive any repayment. So we'll see here this case, I lend Ruvain $1,000. Ruvain says to me, Silber, you are believed to say that I did not repay the debt. Your word is the ultimate decider if I paid or repaid. Ruvain comes, he pays me back in front of the two witnesses. I then decide to say what? You didn't repay me. Bless you. So we'll say, so what's the halacha? So Abayi and Rava says, listen, what are you going to do? I mean, at the end, this was a Tanai in the debt. Even though Ruvain paid him back in front of two witnesses, he said that Silber, you are believed to go ahead and decide whether or not repayment has occurred. Or you are believed to state whether or not repayment has occurred. Papa, what does that mean? No, you're misunderstanding. When Ruvain says that Silber, you are believed to say whether or not repayment occurred, Ruvain effectively is saying that if it's my word against your word, so your word wins out. However, again, Ruvain does not mean to say that my word should that my word should go ahead and trump the testimony of a valid set of witnesses. So the Gemara says, let's listen to this same type of case. I lend Ruvain $1,000, and Ruvain says to me, you are believed like two witnesses to say that I did not pay back. So we'll say, you have to understand something. You have to imagine a case like this could happen as a form of enticing someone to pay back money. Again, whenever a person lends money, there's always the potential fear that the borrower might back out of paying back. So therefore, again, I will say, if I'm a borrower and I need to borrow money, I can make this type of arrangement with my lender, which essentially gives the lender ultimate supremacy and ability to collect. So in this case over here, I say to the lender, I'm the borrower, I say to the lender, ultimately, again, your word is believed. Your word is believed like two witnesses. So we'll say, what happens? So now I, the borrower, go back and I pay the lender in front of three people. First white line, then Beis with Aleph. In front of three people. Amar Papa. So we'll say, now what happens? Now afterwards, the lender says, I never received any money. So we'll say, so what's the halacha? Amar Papa, kibei trehemne, kibei tlasalo hemne. Well, this seems to be an easy one. Why? Because I told the lender that what? He's believed like what Rabbi saying, like two witnesses. Well, no problem. I went ahead and I paid him back in front of three witnesses. And as such, again, he cannot contradict the fact that repayment occurred. I don't think Rav Huna Rav Yeshua, Papa, what does that mean? We'll say, when do numbers matter? Numbers matter, let's say, in a matter of what we call umdina. So we'll say umdina means in matters of evaluation. In other words, in matters when it comes to what we'll call, what's the right word? Judicial opinion or judicial valuation. We'll say where let's say again, Dayanim aren't necessarily going ahead and deciding about whether or not something is mutas, but they have to make a judgment call. So when there is a judgment call, that's where numbers matter. Aval le'inyan eidos. We'll say when it comes to matters of testimony, meya kitrei utrei kemeya. We'll say again, we know this. This is like eidos 101, right? Whether you have two witnesses, whether you have 100 witnesses, we'll say they're all what? They're all considered to be like one testimonial unit. So Lamaisa, again, when I pay back Reuven, the lender, in front of three witnesses, I will say, that doesn't make that testimonial unit any stronger than the strength with which I vested Reuven when I told him that you are believed, kibei trei, which lishnachmina. So what's the other possibility? Another version of this exchange is, who don't leave the chavre, me'amenesli kibei trei. I will say, I borrow money from Reuven, and I say to Reuven, you are believed like two witnesses. Anytime you say that I have not repaid, you are believed like two witnesses. I go back and I pay Reuven in front of three witnesses. Papa says, listen, at this point, I, the borrower, only vested Reuven with the believability of two witnesses, not of three witnesses. I paid him back in front of three witnesses. Therefore, he cannot contradict the fact that I repaid. I don't understand what that means. When it comes to testimony, Rabbi say 2 is like 100, 100 is like 2. Rabbi say, watch this. Here's the exception. If I say Reuven, I borrow $1,000, I say Reuven, you are believed like three witnesses. Kibei tlasa, va'azal upare ba'ape arba, and I pay him back in front of 4. Kevan dinochis ledeos, nochis ledeos. Rabbi say, here's the difference. You see. If I go ahead and I tell him that, Reuven, if I borrow money from you, you are believed like two witnesses to say I did or I didn't pay back. We'll say, so then what I'm essentially saying to Reuven is, you have as much credibility as witnesses. So then, once I get to 2 is 100, 500 doesn't make a difference. We'll say, if I say to Reuven, you are believed like 3. So we'll say 3 by definition is what? 3 by definition now is not really just about testimony, it's also about what we're saying, also about numbers. Therefore, again, once it's about numbers, then I will say the number of people does make a difference. Because if I'm going out of my way to say 3, what's 3? It's a Beis Din, right? So I will say there's no difference in the believability of a Beis Din or a group of witnesses. Once I'm saying 3, I'm becoming therefore number specific. And therefore, again, if I repay him in front of 4, then everyone will agree that what Rabbi saying, that Reuven has no power to contradict the claim of the 4 witnesses. Good. So we'll say, so what comes down to over here is that Allah if I, the borrower, borrow it the tonight, and I say, thank you for lending me the money, you are believed like 2 witnesses. So we'll say, so once I'm saying 2 witnesses, that means by definition like edus, which means that even if I go ahead and I pay back Reuven in front of 3 witnesses or 4 witnesses or 5 witnesses, it doesn't make a difference. Reuven is still vested with the credibility. Once I go ahead and I start giving numbers, if I pay, you are believed like 4 or 5, then I will say I'm being makbid on the numbers, which means if I pay him back in front of a larger number of people, then by definition he can't contradict, but in front of a smaller number of people, he can contradict. Weiter, also remember again, the Mishnah said, you do not swear based on the claim of a chirish shot of a cotton, and we do not administer an oath to a cotton. My time, what's the reason? Amakra, ki yitain ish areo kesef akeim lishmar. So I'll say, Pasuk says, this is not by the Shuva Modim Miktas, if a man will give to his fellow money or a utensil to watch, ve'inesinas katan klum. And about the act of a katan giving, or the act of giving to a katan, is meaningless. Fine, avan lishpan the katan or the hektish, but you can take an oath to a katan or to hektish. But one second, what does that mean? The Mishnah seems to contradict itself. The Mishnah says that we swear to a katan and to hektish, yet we just said before that what? That one does not swear. There is no oath which is triggered ultimately again through the taina, through the claim of a katan. Amarav, we'll say what's the case? Beva b'tainis aviv. We'll say the case of the Mishnah is the following. If you take a look at the second to last line in Rashi, Beva b'tainis aviv, hadik toin lishban b'nesinas ish kamar, shakatan tono ani masra avi masra liadecha. So we'll say the case over here is where what? Is ultimately again of a person who's coming b'tainas aviv. That I will say ultimately again, the child, although we'll discuss what is this a child, meaning that he's the child of someone, but he's a gadol or he's a katan. We'll discuss it in just a moment. But the case of Osai is where he's coming to he's coming to the individual and he's saying, I come to Ruvain, I say to Ruvain, my father lent you something, or my father deposited something with you. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. And I will say the case over here ultimately again is the reflexive Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. This Sanya, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, Pamim Shadam Nishpat Hanas Atzmo. Sometimes a person could swear based on his own admission. Case, and what's the case? Amrlo, Monali Avicha Biadi. We'll say, I go over to her and say, Ruvain, your father deposited a mana with me, Vechaltiv Pras, and I paid back part of it already. Rashi says, Vechaltiv Pras, last Rashi, Vechzarti Lo Chetzi, Vachetzi of Biadi. So let's listen to this. So what happens? I went ahead, I say to Ruvain, your father deposited money with me, deposited $1,000, I paid him back $500, and I have the other $500. So let's say, so what's the halacha? Harei ze nishpat. Ultimately, we'll say that's a motive of mikzas. I'm admitting part of a claim, and therefore, what I have to pay? I have to pay back half, and I take a shvua on the other half. So the Gemara says, "V'zeu nishpat tainas atzmo," and this ultimately again is the case of someone who swears based on his own taina. The Chachamim say, "Eino ela k'meshiv aveda upater." The Chacham, on the other hand, say that no, I will say. This doesn't trigger a taina. Instead, what is this? This is a case of Meshav Aveda. Well, so now, what does Meshav Aveda mean? You see, in this case over here, when Reuven comes over to me, what is Reuven claiming? Not his own debt, but rather what? He's claiming his father's debt. Then we'll say, now, I could easily say what? Yeah. No idea what you're talking about. Right? Lohayu Dvarim Me'olam. Never happened. No idea what you're talking about. And I will say, what's Reuven's follow-up after I say that? Nothing. At the end of the day, nothing. So when I go ahead and I admit that I owe anything to Reuven's father, right? Reuven's now deceased father. So the man say again, that's like Meshav Aveda. That's like returning a lost object, which means I give back what I give back, and there's no further claim against me. Upater, I'm pater Meshua. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov less than Meshav Aveda pater. I'll say 1 second. Does Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov not hold Meshav Aveda pater? Amarav, what's the case? Bishatano katan. Well, so the case over here is where the claim is being made by a katan. Katan, va'amrit in lishmara tanis cheirishot of a katan. But we just said in the Mishnah that the taina of a katan does not trigger a shvuah. To which the Gemara says, you're right. Liolam gadol. In reality, I'll say the claim over here is being made by a gadol. So Ruvain, who is a gadol, who is an adult, comes over to me and says, you owe my father $1,000. And what happens? I'll say, so I'm going ahead and I say, I gave him back 500, and the other 500 is with me. My car la katan. But I will say if the claim is being made by an adult, then why does the Gemara call him a katan? My car la katan. So the gabi mili davua katan who, because I will say regarding his father's affairs, he is a katan. I will say, what does that mean? That lamaisa again, that he doesn't know his father's estate, doesn't know his father's affairs. So because of that, he's called the katan la gabi his father. Ihachi. Tainas atzmo, tainas achirimi. We'll say if that's the case, then now we're setting this up as what? As a case of where Ruvain, who is what? Who's how old? Who's how old? He's a gadol. He's gadol, but he's called a katan because he doesn't know that much about his father's affairs. So now Ruvain, who's a gadol, comes and he says, "You owe my father $1,000," and I say, "What? I paid him back 500. I owe him another 500." So we'll say, "So why is that called ihachi tainas atzmo?" So remember, the Brisa said that there sometimes a person swears because of his own claim. I'm not swearing because of my own claim. Tainas achirimu. I'm swearing why? Because Reuven is making a claim. In other words, I'm not admitting. It's not like I'm waking up one day, calling up Reuven and say, "Reuven, I have some good news and bad news. Bad news is your father passed away, right? The good news is that what? You've got money coming to you." You know, we'll say, you know that there's a halacha like that, right? The halacha is that if somebody loses a relative, somebody loses, let's say, a parent, but they are going to get a very large Yerusha. So we'll say the halacha is that you say Dayan Ha'emes, and then you say Hatov Ametiv, right, or Shechion, depending on the nature of the inheritance, which is an interesting halacha. So I have good news and bad news, right? The bad news is your father. The good news is I owe you money. So we'll say, but that's not Tainas Atzmo. That Tain is being triggered by someone else. Tainas Achir, which the Gemara says you're right. Tainas Achir v'odas Atzmo. We'll say it's a case of where someone else is making the claim, but so Reuven is making the claim, you owe my father money, but I am admitting that what? I am admitting that I owe the money. In other words, I'm admitting that I paid back half and owe half. Abba Bezer will say, Kulu nami tav esachem vadas atzlo. So Shkayach, the Gemara says, I don't understand that's every case that we'll be dealing with. We'll say, that is the case of Modeh B'Miktsas. The case of Modeh B'Miktsas is someone makes a claim, and what do I do? What do I do? I admit part of the claim, and I deny the other part of the claim. Ella b'dirabah kamiflik. So rather, what are they arguing about? They're arguing about the statement of Rabbi. We'll say, what's going on with Rabbi? This is amazing. We saw this before on Sunday. So Rabbi says, why is it that a modeh b'miktsas? So we'll say, why is it that partial admission triggers a Shevuos? What is it about partial admissions which triggers a Shevuos? To which the Gemara says, Chazaka, ein adam meis panav b'fnei b'achova. Because we'll say, a general Chazaka. What's the Chazaka? A person does not, which is a person, nobody's going to be so brazen to lie in front of their creditor. As I will say, this is an interesting idea. You know, the halacha takes into account that Jews we're good people. We're good people. And so at the end of the day, even when I do something bad, there is a ceiling to my bad kite. Right? There's a ceiling to my bad kite. There's only so far I'm going to go. So at the end of the day, if I borrow money from someone, that person is able to understand there's no real financial profit in Jewish lending. Right? There's an issur of ribas, leaving aside heter iska, things like that. But in spiritual realm, there's no real financial benefit ultimately in Jewish lending. So somebody lent me money. I'm not going to deny the claim in its entirety in front of the Baal Chov. So really, what I would like to be able to do, as we'll say in just a moment, is to deny the claim in its entirety. But I'm not going to do it because that's too much chutzpah. So in reality, I'd like to admit that I owe everything, but I can't do that. So Zabal said, well, I don't want to admit the whole thing either. Why? Because I don't have the money to repay yet. Savar, I just need a little bit more time, and I'll have money to repay. Therefore, again, I will say, what do I do? What do I do? How do I balance this? I will say, I don't want to admit I don't want to deny the entire debt because that's just ridiculous chutzpah, and there's a ceiling even to my chutzpah. I can't admit the whole thing. Why? Because I don't have the money to pay back. So what do I do? What do I do? Modeh b'miktsas. I admit part of it. So we'll say what that does is it makes me feel better about not going ahead and denying the whole thing. But what it does is it doesn't put me on the hook right now for repayment of the entire thing. So the Torah understands the logic or the psychology of the borrower, and therefore says, Amar Rami, so the Gemara says, Vrachmana Amar Rami Shmuel keich idalo delay. Therefore, the Torah says, take a Shevuos. So therefore, what? That Shevuos is going to force you to admit the second part that you owe. So Bekule, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Savar, So keich lo Bekule. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Savar, lo shnabo v'lo shnabivno eno meiz. So what's Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov holds? That a person will not be when we say that a person will not be brazen to deny the debt in its entirety to the face of the creditor, we'll say that makes no difference if it's the creditor who he actually borrowed the money from or the son of the creditor who inherits the debt. a person is never going to fully lie to the person to whom they owe money, whether it's the person I directly borrowed from, or now that he died, his son who inherited the debt. And therefore, again, Abosai, when I go ahead and I admit that I owe part of the debt to Reuven, who inherited the loan of the father, ultimately, again, that's not Meishiv Aveda, that's Modib Mixas. For Rabbanan Savri, Bifanavu De'ino Meiz, Aval Bifnei Beno Meiz. I will say that Rabbanan say no. The only person I would never totally lie to, I will say, is who? Mamish, the creditor. The person who I borrowed the money from, the person who put the money in my hand. I can never be such a Bal Chutzpah to say, I never received anything from you. To his son, that jerk, right? For sure I could go. For sure I'll say whatever. I mean, I'll say, the idea is a lot of this is also about relationship. This is the person who gave me the money. I can never be such a Bal Chutzpah to go ahead and deny the claim to him. But now that he's dead, and his son inherited the debt, I could lie to that guy. Right? That guy I can have the chutzpah to lie to. Therefore what? Therefore, I will say, since I could have lied, but I don't lie, therefore my partial admission doesn't trigger a motive. It makes us rather, it's considered as if what? As if I'm just returning a lost object. In other words, I will say, because I have this migo, that essentially I could have lied and totally freed myself from any liability, when I admit to something, I am believed. So the Gemara says, like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. So can you really say this like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov? After all, Hakatani Reisha, Manala Abba Biyadecha. So I'll say, but look at the Reisha. Reisha says, I go over to Ruvain, or I go over to Ruvain, your father owes me money, or your father owed me money. And I'll say, what happens? I know I'm switching around the names in the borrow lender, I apologize. So what happens? I go over to her, I say, Ruvain, your father owed me money. Now again, the case over here is where his father died. So dinar. What happens? Ruvain says, I'm sorry, I only have in your possession 50 dinar. We'll say, what's that? Locha pater. Supposed to, what is the Mishnah rule? What is the Raisa rule? Pater, why? Because like returning a lost object. So we'll say, you see from here, that Lamaisa again, is Kameshev Aveda. To which the Gemara says, here's the difference. Hasam, de lo Amar Barili, Hacha de Amar Barili. I will say, here's the distinction. In the first case, ultimately, again, the claim was a definitive one. In the second case, the claim was not a definitive one. When it's definitive, Rabbi say, then we apply the laws of Modim and Miktas. When it's not definitive, then ultimately, again, we say Kimei Shiv Aveda. Shmuel, Amar Shmuel says, Rabbi say, what's the case of Katan in the Mishnah? The Katan, the Pare Minich Se Katan. So Rabbi say, Shmuel says that the case of Katan in the Mishnah, ultimately, again, is someone who has a debt against the Katan and wants to be paid back, ultimately, again, from the estate of the Katan. So what does the Mishnah come to teach you, Rabbi Say? Which comes to teach you that you cannot collect from the estate of the Katan without a Shevuos, which Rabbi Say is not novel here. That is the general halacha which says that what? That you cannot collect from Nichse Yisomim without a Shevuos. Hekdish, Minichse Hekdish, I'm sorry. The Katan department say Katan. Lahekdish department Nichse Hekdish. So I'll say ultimately, against what the Mishnah speaks about collection from Hekdish. It means I want to collect a debt from Hekdish, from property which was previously mortgaged and is now Hekdish, so you can't collect that again without a Shevuos. So which the Gemara says, the Katan, the Parmenich say Katan Tanina. But 1 second, if you're coming to teach you that you can't collect from the Nechasim of a Katan without a Shevuos, we already learned that before. Minichsi Yisomim lo yipare el b'Shevuos. We'll say we already learned that what? You cannot collect from the property of orphans without a Shevuos. Karti Lama, we'll say we're learning this halacha twice. Hakamash lanki da bai kishisha. We'll say it's coming to teach me that halacha is like da bai kishisha. The Tanya bai kishisha. Yisomim sha'amru gidolim. We'll say when we say that you can't collect from the property of Yisomim without a Shevuos, we'll say we often envision Yisomim as kitanim, but Yisomim could even be what? Yisomim could be gedolim. Ve'ein tzarech lomar kitanim bein l'shvuah bein l'ziburis. The Rebbe says, "This is an interesting halacha. Comes to teach me that when we speak about the laws of collection from the property of Yisomim, Rebbe say, Yisomim is that halacha, whether it's for collecting inferior property or shvuah, applies to Yisomim of all ages. Because Rebbe says the general logic of collection from Yisomim is what Rebbe is saying, that a Yasum is not necessarily conversant or not necessarily knowledgeable in the affairs of the estate. So to protect the assets of the estate, Chazal essentially said that what? Before you collect anything from the estate, you must take a Shevuos. You must take a Shevuos. And I will say, that's independent. So our Mishnah can be talking about Mamish Yisomim who are Ketanim, and the previous Mishnah spoke about Yisomim even who are Gedolim. Lehekdish, we'll say, what's the case of Hekdish? The Parmenich Hekdish. So tell me, the case of Hekdesh Shavosai is that, let's say again, I went ahead and I lent money to Reuven. His property was mortgaged to the debt. He gives the property to Hekdesh. Again, he defaults. I now want to collect that property, which I had a previous lien on before Hekdesh got it. So I need to take a Shevuos. Tanina, we learned that already. We'll say from encumbered property, you can't collect except with the Shevuos. We'll say, what does it mean? What does it matter if it's encumbered to a regular person or to Hekdesh? We'll say either way, if I went ahead and I lent Reuven money, so I'm a first position creditor. Reuven then decides to be a great baltzak, and I will say it's always easy to be a baltzak with other people's money. So Reuven decides to take the piece of property which has a lien on it, and he decides to go ahead and donate to the Beis Hamikdash. Fantastic. Then when he defaults, I have the right to go to the Beis Hamikdash to collect that money, which I had a prior lien on. All the Gemara is teaching me is that I have to take a Shevuos. I have to swear to Hekdesh before I go and I take the money. But we learned that already. It's just hedyot hu adam osekin yal hedyot. Aval hekdesh de'ein adam osekin yal hekdesh kamashmalan. So I might have thought that it's only when collecting from a regular person I have to take a Shevuos, because sometimes people play games, but no one in their right mind is going to unlawfully seize property from hekdesh in satisfaction of a debt. Kamashmalan, I will say that no. Kamashmalan, unfortunately, people play games with hekdesh as well, and therefore, again, I, as the creditor, cannot collect money, cannot collect property in repayment of the debt from the Beis Hamikdash, unless, of course, I first take a Shevuos. Also, listen to this. But yet, we learn that a Shchiv Mira who consecrates all of his property, and he says, from the property that I consecrated, I owe a mana to Ploni, he is believed. Why? Chazaka ein adam osekinunya al hekdesh. Because also we assume that a person does not go ahead and what? Does not go ahead and play games. Right? Steal from hekdesh. Look at Rashi just a moment. Mana leploni biadi hegbiu tchila min hanechasim shekdashti. So we'll say ultimately again he goes ahead and he on one hand he goes ahead we'll say and he pledges his property to the Beis Hamikdash, but he also goes ahead and says I owe a mana to Ploni. So we'll say we assume we take his words at value, at face value, and he owes the money to Ploni. Amri, hanimi v'shchimira, deina adam chote v'lo lo. We'll say, listen to this. That's by a shchimira. Why? We'll say, because a shchimira, we say, eina adam chote v'lo lo, which means a person only sins if what? If they're going to get benefit from the sin. Because this guy's about to die, therefore we assume he's not playing any kind of games and withholding any kind of money. However, aval gabi bari vadechashin. We'll say by healthy people play games with regular people play games with hekdesh, and therefore we'll say the halacha is coming to teach me that if I'm a creditor, I lent Reuven money, Reuven secured the debt with property. Subsequently, he was makdish the property. Now he defaulted, he has no money. I want to go to hekdesh to go ahead and claim that property in payment of my debt. And I will say, I have a shtar, right? I have everything. The halacha still is before taking anything from hekdesh. What do I have to do? I have to take a Shevuos. I have to swear that I'm a first position creditor, and ultimately again, only then take the money from hekdesh. Good. Mishnah. Well, let's finish the Mishnah. These are the things, up until now we've been focusing on Shevuos. These are the things which you cannot take a Shevuos over. What are they? Ha'avadim, shtaros, v'karkos, v'hekdeshos. So we'll say, so when it comes to avadim, slaves, shtaros, documents, karka, hekdeshos, hekdesh. So we'll say, any claims regarding these items does not go ahead and generate an obligation to take a Shevuos. Furthermore, and we'll define, we're going to explain all of these statements. Ein bahem tashlume kefel. We'll say there is no claim for kefel against them. V'lo tashlume arba v'chamisha. No claims of 4 and 5 time penalty payments regarding any of these matters. In other words, we'll say, if I stole any of these items, there can never be a claim for kefel. There can't be a claim ultimately again for arba v'chamisha, which again refers specifically to the case of stealing an ox or a lamb. Shomer chinam eino nishba. An unpaid custodian does not have to swear if he was watching any of these items and they were lost or stolen. No seisachar eino mashalim. A paid custodian would not have to repay the owner of any of these items. Reb Shimon says, "Kadshim shechay b'achriyus and nishmar aleim." So Reb Shimon says, "Kadshim, consecrated property that you are chayiv lachriyus." We'll say, so if I have a responsibility for consecrated property and something happens to it, then I have to take a Shevuos on it. The she'ino chai b'achriyus in English, but any kudshim which I do not have responsibility for, I don't take a shvuah. Now, what is it referring to? Look at Rashi for just a moment. What's the case of kudshim shachai b'achriyusan, consecrated property for which I have a responsibility? Rashi says, Kigon Amar Hare Alai Ola Behefresh Behemel Nidro Vivkida Lazen Nishpala Osa Shapi Kadam Yodo. So let's listen to this. If I say Hare Alai Ola, I hereby take upon me the obligation to bring an Ola. So what's the halacha? What happens? So let's say I separate out the nicest lamb from my flock. What happens if wolves come and eat that lamb? And say, what happens? What's the halacha? The halacha is I have to bring another one. Why? Because I took a personal responsibility. I have the achrayis. So what the Gemara is suggesting over here is that any case where I have personal achrayis for kudshim, that will trigger a shvuah. A shomer will be chayiv in those kind of situations. Again, we'll spell this out more in the Gemara. Rabbi Meir says, Yeshram shehen kekarka, bekarka, ve'eno kekarka. Ve'en chamodro. So Rabbi Meir says there are things which are in the ground, but yet don't have the status of karka. And the Chachamim disagree. What are we talking about? So the Gemara says, I'll tell you, Ketzad, Eser gifanim tunos masarti lecha. I say to Ruvain, I gave you 10 laden vines, which will say 10 vines with grapes that are ready to be harvested. Va'ala omer eina ela chamesh, and Ruvain says, you only gave me 5. Rabbi Meir mechayiv shua. Rabbi Meir says, that's modib b'miktas. Rabbi say, why is that modib b'miktas? Because ultimately, again, we'll see, since the grapes are ready to be detached, therefore what? It's as if they are detached. Therefore, Rabbi say, this is a claim regarding detached property, which is then subject to Shul Modib Miktas. The Chum say, no, Chum say, if it's attached to the ground, then what? Then it's ground. Then it's karka, even if it's ready to be detached. So, both say, furthermore, you can only take a shul regarding a matter, shebemida v'shebemishkal v'shebeminyan. We will say regarding something ultimately, again, that is measured, weighed, or counted. Ketzad, for example, bayis mali masarti lecha. If I say to Reuven, I gave you a full storehouse. Vikis mali masarti lecha, or I gave you a full bag of money. V'alo omer ein yodea elamashe nachtat anotel. And Reuven says, I don't know what you're talking about. Rather, again, what you see in front of you is what you gave me. So we'll say, essentially, the claim over here is for an imprecise measurement, a full storehouse, a bag filled with money. And Reuven's saying, listen, whatever is here is what you gave me. So Pater, we'll say that does not trigger a Shua Modeh Miktas. However, Ze Omer Ad Haziz, Ze Omer Ad Hachalon Chayiv. But if I say, Reuven, I gave you a storehouse filled with grain, and the grain went up until the beam, the support beam, and Reuven says, no, it only went up until what? The window. Then I will say that is the case of Shua Modeh Miktas. Why? Because we're talking about specifically defined items. Right? We'll stop over here, pick up in Hashem with the Gemara tomorrow. Shkoyach.